Welcome back to the Pro Series podcast. Today is episode 119, and we have two guests for you today. They are a married couple, Mickey and Sherry Patterson. Mickey is a real estate investor. Sherry is a real estate broker, and she also helps people that are trying to find a way to invest in real estate and maybe just can't afford it. She has some awesome advice that I've never thought about, and it's a genius idea, and I actually might partake in it. But before we get into that episode, please like, subscribe, and review this podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. And now I hope you enjoy episode 119 with Mickey and Sherry Patterson.
Mickey and Sherry, thank you so much for hopping on the Pro Series podcast today. Can't wait to talk. You have so much information on the investing world. You really touch on literally every single part of the investing world. And I can't wait to talk about your expertise and have you on and just talk more information about what you're an expert in.
That sounds good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Let's start out to just a little introduction. Give us a little bio about each of yourselves and what kind of makes you guys different for any of the other real estate investors out there.
You want to go?
So I am a broker. I do all investment real estate, and I have been focusing on that now for about 15 years and just been an agent for 10. But I started learning about investment real estate and everything and really couldn't find all the information that I wanted to find. So I started a real estate investment group, having a background in all different types of businesses. I've always planned events, and that was one of the businesses that I had was Hoopla Events. And so I started a real estate investment group, and my first meeting had 6 people at it. We've been doing it now for 10 years, very successful event. Prior to COVID, we were doing 3 cities a month. I'm back to just doing 1 as we, grow it back to what it used to be. But we've got a great attendance. So we teach classes every month. And through that, I have a lot of clients, and we do everything from flips and syndications and land developing, RV parks, self-storage, you name it, we do it. We teach it, tiny homes, and try to get very creative with our investment strategies for ourselves and our clients. So I also do property management, and like I said, pretty much anything we have to do, new builds. So pretty much anything investment related, we do it.
My gosh. And then Mickey?
So as she mentioned, the brokerage and the property management and all that stuff, I've been in the last 25 years or so, the more of a typical sales business development world and in the tech industry. And for our real estate stuff, mostly working behind the scenes, really focusing on the underwriting, the numbers management, looking at what deals work and trying to support what Sherry's doing as far as the analysis piece of it. I know that seems kind of backwards, but believe it or not, Sherry would go into some of these fix and flips. He's out there kicking down walls, clearing stuff out. And I would go help where I get drug along to. But when I talk about the firsthand experience, a lot of the stuff we started with really was just tearing down walls, ripping stuff down to the studs. And as we kind of went through this, I think one of the big things that different people learn different ways. And in the case of us, it was really just go and do it. Talk to people, get some of the education, but then just go try it out. Test it out, test the water, see what works, what doesn't, learn take your bumps on the head, learn from it, and then move on and get better, and then expand and keep building on that. And I know some people work better with kind of a hand-holding guide along and whatever works for each person. For us, we went down the road, took our bumps and bruises over this last 15 or so years, and have really been able to carve out a niche of understanding of a broad range of asset groups. And when we talk to other people and even for our own projects, it really helps because we're able to look at every scenario and come up with a creative solution to make it work.
Yeah. And I know off camera, we talked about going back to Sherry about being creative when it comes to real estate investing. I think there's so many people out there that want to do something because, that's all you hear is invest in real estate. But a lot of people don't have like what you said, $300,000 to invest in a home to rent out or lease or whatever. You get creative with your ways in helping people with real estate investing. What are those couple creative ways you're telling me off camera?
Well, I have so many people that, will call me and say, I really want to get into investment real estate, but I have $10,000, maybe $20,000, and so they're thinking there's nothing they can do. So there's several things that they can do. One is to house hack. If they're in a position where they can go live in a property for a year, they can buy a property with virtually no money down as an FHA loan, and they can do that once a year. So you can buy a property, live in it for a year, turn around and keep it as a rental and move on to the next one, or even flip it. If the market's done well, you have equity in it, then you can make money off of it and go to the next one. So that's one way that they can do that. If they're not in a position to do that, kids are in school, whatever, they can't move. There's other creative things. Talk to people about tiny houses. We have 5 tiny houses. So you can get a tiny house. You can find an RV park that would allow you to put your tiny house on it. And so you pay your lot fee. That's maybe $500 a month, but then I get $1,200 a month for my tiny houses. So, wow. And they have little to no maintenance compared to a big single family home. And so I'm making a lot more profit, especially when I only paid $20,000 for this tiny house. And we have some that we have built. Matter of fact, we're sitting in one right now.
Our office right now.
The office is a tiny house. I didn't count that in the 5 because this is his office, but he built this. And so we're all into this at less than $5,000. And it has a little kitchenette and a bathroom and everything. It could stick a bed in here and it's a tiny house. So there's things that they could do like that. Or let's say they don't have $10,000 to $20,000. They have $5,000 to $7,000. They can buy an RV. So there's lots of people that rent RVs for the weekend. You can get an RV off Facebook, paint the cabinets inside, just make sure it's in good working order, because it's not a lot of things that can go wrong with an RV if it's a one that you tow, a trailer.
Yeah.
And fix it up, make it cute, and rent it out on the weekends. Or again, get someone that allows you to park it at their RV park. Again, you pay your $500 a month, you rent it out for $800, $900 a month, whatever that is. And that's just your profit, which again, since I do property management, I know very well that there's a lot of people that have single family homes that aren't making that because again, there's so many things that go wrong. They have HVAC that goes out, water heater, whatever. And so their average is, maybe $200 a month, $300.
Well, and I think just from a number standpoint, especially right now when people think about the interest rates being so high, it's hard to make deals work, both in single family, multifamily. And so a lot of times, and just to jump on the tiny homes, there's cases where you have a lot better profitability getting into something that's smaller. Now, you may have a challenge with scaling to a bigger deal, but for a lot of the people, I think people get really stuck in a mindset of, well, I'm really emotionally attached to, I want this nice apartment, or I want this type of property, I want this. And that may not be what meets their financial objectives. So they're kind of at odds with themselves with, well, I want to make a better return, but I really want this asset. I was like, well, then maybe you don't want a better return. You want that asset. And so sometimes just being aware that there are other options, because when we went and started diving in and trying to learn this, we found that we had talked to one group and they were really good on apartments, and another group that was really good on single family or rehabs. But then you got competing information. And the more we dug into it, we realized that there's a lot of ways to be successful in a lot of these groups if you just step back, take emotion out of it, look at the deals, what the numbers work, and sometimes they work great, and sometimes the one that you really, really want to work just doesn't, and you need to walk away.
I like how you said to take the emotion out of it, because that's exactly what holds the people back. And then you see it on TV with, it's kind of a glamorized thing now to flip homes, and and people just want to do that because they want to have a project, but they don't really get that there's a whole science behind it. Like, you need to have the return on the investment. What are some of the other behind the scenes type of stuff that you feel like people are missing when they're investing in a home? Like, if they're biting too much than they could chew, or what is it that you feel like a lot of people are missing out on?
And specifically to single family, or
just in general, I guess, in real estate investing?
I would say in the single family, I think a lot of people, what we've seen lately, and this is probably because here in North Texas, we do have this big influx of people moving from other states.
Yeah.
And I think it's created this irrational perspective of returns.
Yeah.
I think the best example, and I know I hear Sherry complaining about this all the time, and I'm just trying to make appropriate offers and looking for deals where duplexes, for example, where someone may have a duplex that at most rent, say, $1,200 a month on each side, so $2,400 a month. Well, then you start backing this in and say, okay, that property, maybe it should be worth 260, 280, following some general guidelines.
If even.
Yeah.
I mean, the rule of thumb is 1%.
1%. And,
Okay.
but then you see people that have this mindset of, well, it's all growing. It's growing. Everything is going up. And this thing is getting bid up to 360, 380, 400,000. And you see these people
Well, it's
that
listed at that.
yeah, it's listed. Yeah. And even the people listing it. And I think right now the challenge, at least what we see in looking for deals for ourselves and others, is people have had that mindset for so long. And now that we're seeing the interest rates go up, and I don't want to call it a reset, but kind of an adjustment back to normalcy, the underwriting criteria is kind of back to being small margins and a lot of due diligence. People are thinking, oh, I should still get this. Well, based off of what? Well, because that's what I want. Well, what you want doesn't have a factor into what it's worth. And really having people take back and taking a realistic look at those numbers, that's probably where I think we see the biggest challenge right now is a disconnect from reality with the monetary part of it versus what they feel like they should have got or what they paid for, and telling people that, look, what you paid for has absolutely no bearing on what the value is. That's just what it is.
And I would say two things. One, that right now, I think that people are so focused on multifamily. Everybody wants to be in multifamily. And again, it's the glamorous thing or whatever. Oh, we own a X amount of doors. Well, again, as a property manager, I can tell you multifamily is not what's making the money. And I think you have to be really careful with the underwriting of that, because I think that them not as property managers, again, don't realize a lot of those expenses and how often they happen.
Oh, yeah.
So, and when doing inspections, don't just hire a home inspector or was multifamily, whatever it is, an inspector just to go out and do an inspection. That's a waste of money, because most of the time they give you the inspection report and it says, oh, the foundation is such and such. You need to have a foundation person look at it. The plumbing is such and such. You need to have a plumber come look at it. That's what their report says. So skip that. Spend the money, have a foundation person go out, have a plumber go out, have a roofer go out, have an electrician go out, an HVAC. So those are what the 4 or 5 main things that they need to actually have inspected by a professional, not an inspector. And that makes a big difference. And so many people, they think they looked at those things, but they get in and I've got one, for instance, that I manage that's 14 units. They think they got such a great deal on it. I told them from the beginning that they were old apartments. I would go in from the very beginning and just replumb the whole thing. Well, of course, they don't want to put the money into it. Investors are cheap. They want
frugal.
Very frugal. They don't want to put the money into anything. They want to rent it out as is. So they did that. Well, now they've spent way more on fixing the plumbing ongoing than they would have ever spent had they just replaced the plumbing in the beginning. So I would say you need to plan for that, put that in your budget ahead of time. So when you're raising the funds or you're getting the loan or whatever you're doing, plan for major renovation. If it's more than, 15, 20 years old, you need to plan to probably replace the plumbing. You need to, look at the electrical and look at these things and just plan to get them replaced, because you will spend nickel and diming yourself to death trying to repair the stuff. And then you've got tenants that are mad because they can't use the toilet, then it causes all kinds of issues. So they need to budget for these things ahead of time. But again, I think they all want to look at this multifamily instead of looking at some alternative things like mobile home parks. Well, it doesn't look very glamorous to say I own a mobile home park. We're trailer park trash. They don't want that. But there's a lot bigger return on investment on a mobile home park than there ever is going to be with multifamily.
And obviously all those are deal by deal specific, but
Yeah.
just as an asset class, there's a different take. I think part of the challenge with some of them right now, and probably what leads to people hurrying through and not getting the inspections and the appropriate people, is because the deals are so hard to find right now.
Mhm.
And just because of, you know, the interest rates and numbers and making the deals work, people get impatient. I know we've been victim to that too, really wanting the deals to work and maybe hang on too long before we walk away and then finally cut bait on it. But you really want the deals to work because you're not getting a whole lot of deals done. And so it becomes one of those, well, I really want this to work. And we go back to emotion. It's, well, you wanting it to work doesn't mean it's going to work. So kind of slow down. The numbers either work, and it's frustrating. You know, she's yelled at me numerous times, not just for real estate stuff, but in this case, real estate stuff. But in particular, because I'm looking at deals, he's like, well,
Because I feel like he gets analysis paralysis. He wants that perfect deal. And I think that's how a lot of investors are, that, you know, it has to be the perfect numbers, but you also don't want to make the numbers fit just because you want a deal. So it's a real fine line of what really is a return and using real numbers and being willing to take that risk.
Yeah. For someone that, like, going back to that first question, people were starting out. I mean, I feel like a lot of people that go into this don't know, or just you don't know what you don't know, especially when you're going into stuff like this. And obviously you guys are knowledgeable with this. Do you teach others in your area about this stuff?
We certainly, and whether that be single family wholesaling, some multifamily, or syndication, we help people out with a little bit of all those. You know,
that's my impact business. So again, we've got multifaceted of the business. So, but it's called Impact REI training, and so we do all types of training. For the single family part of it, I have worked with Dennis Henson's Impact REI training. He's a local guy here that's been teaching real estate investment for over 50 years. And so he's very knowledgeable with the single family side of that. But, you know, we, again, go in beyond that with my events and our training on, again, whether they want to learn subject to, or again, RVs,
there's so many areas you can go.
Storage, whatever they want to learn. I hold people's hand as much or as little as they need me to walk them through a deal.
But it kind of, and this may come back to your specific question too, like with some of those people starting, I think in our case, and which I would think should be the right way to approach it, is just talking with that person as far as what are their assets available to invest, you know, as far as their comfortable time, and then also what they want to do. As far as some people want to be hands-on, and that's great. Some people don't. For example, in our syndication approach, we work with people that are kind of like the space I came from in the professional sales world, that just don't have a lot of time. They're like, hey, I'm working, I'm making good money. You go invest it, just like they would have somebody investing in a mutual fund. You go find me good deals. I want a decent return, but I just want you to deal with it. I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to deal with tenants. Don't call me when a washer needs to be replaced or any of that mess. But then we talk to others who are, I'm really good around the house. I'm handy. I can take care of any issues or problems, and I have time, so I don't mind doing that. Well, okay, that person may be getting involved in learning in some single family spaces. So it really kind of just depends on every person's individual case of where you guide them to. And most of those people may start one place. We did start one place, kind of add on. Some may end up focusing somewhere else, and some may be like us and really kind of dabble in a little bit of everything.
And I'm going to say three things on that. One, you need to decide what you want to do. As a new investor, decide on one thing, master it before you move on to something else. I'm very guilty of, you know, squirreling and, oh, this looks shiny. This looks shiny. And
this is as long as she sat still for a while and not had a squirrel moment.
So you need to learn one thing. So let's say that's flipping, and that's what you've decided you want to do. Learn everything you can, get a mentor. I tell all my clients, education's expensive. You can go out and do it yourself and lose some money, but had your hands-on experience and it was a learning experience, or you can pay somebody to guide you through that, teach you how to do it right, and it's still going to cost you money. So either way, education's expensive. But find out what that is, master it, and then move on to the next thing. Don't just, try to do, because there's so much, as we've talked about, there's so much diversity in real estate. Don't try to do it all.
Yeah.
So, and there was one other thing now that I said that and I forgot, but
Squirrel moment.
yeah, squirrel moment.
I'm glad you guys brought up time and all that other stuff, because especially when people are starting out in real estate investment, it's cliche to or start when you're young. There's some people that are starting when they retire or whatever, but when you're young, you kind of think you know everything and you try to do everything yourself. So you're doing the property management. I know there's so many people in my area that own a couple, townhouses or apartments, and they think they have enough time, but they're working the 9 to 5 and then doing this and stuff like the plumbing and stuff comes up and they're just putting band-aids on it and slowly ruining the subfloor and all that stuff. So sucking up their pride and hiring a property management company or anything like that.
Read the book, Who Not How.
So
Not how, okay.
Who Not How. Learn how to delegate and get the other people that know what they're doing to do those things instead of you trying to do everything. You focus on what you're good at because your time is better spent.
And those are ones that, frankly, we, in different parts of it, the operation business, we still struggle with, because you have that mindset of, well, I know how, especially the parts that you know how to do. Mm-hmm. It's challenging. We've had this discussion
to pay somebody else to do what you can do
1,000 times, where she is good at a lot of those things, and some of them she likes to do, but it's one of those, if you just that pragmatic view of, would you pay someone less to do that task than what you would pay yourself for your work? And if the answer is yes, then pay somebody else to do it. And that's a hard one to do, because you're like, well, I don't want to pay somebody else to do it when I can do it. Mm-hmm. But you run out of time. And to your point of the time management, you only have so much time. And that's the one thing you can't get back. You can't increase, you can't make the rates go higher on it, but you can't offload that to somebody else. And we're just as guilty on that, on even the other stuff, like marketing. And we're finally hiring some virtual assistants and expanding our business of stuff. But those are ones that are even outside of the exact real estate part, and your regular business piece are the same things hold true. And you have to constantly remind yourself, you know what? We need to outsource this. We need to add somebody for this. And those are lessons you kind of have to keep learning and telling yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Well, on the same lines as time is that, no, you can't get any more. And that's what we have. But the other thing of that is that we all have the same amount of time. And I hear so many people say, well, I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
Well, but you look at the other people that are doing it, they're working their full-time job and they're making it work. So understanding, again, what the value of your time is and where does it need to be spent? What are your goals? But because everybody's goals are not the same, but depending on what your goals are, making sure you're time blocking and scheduling and that, if somebody else can accomplish this, well, then you can too. But on that same thing, I'm not trying to say to compare yourself to somebody else. I'm just saying that if somebody else can spend X amount of hours doing such and such, then you can too, instead of using it as an excuse.
Yeah. It all comes down to time management.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just said it all comes down to time management. I think a lot of people, that's one of my biggest pet peeves, when people say they're too busy to do something, because if you truly want to do something, you're going to find the time to do it.
Well,
and if you don't, you'll find an excuse.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that what I would add to the time management, it's priority, because the time something else is taking up that time. So you're making a choice of something else over that. And maybe that's the choice you want to make, but sometimes it's the choice you're not admitting you're making. Yeah. So it's really looking at what you're picking over that.
Yeah.
Well, and I posted a story the other day that I had copied that I really enjoyed. And it was interesting because it said that it was a fisherman that lived in a little island, let's say off Thailand or wherever it was. And there was a businessman there on vacation. And so he looks down, and this fisherman had, a handful of fish in his boat, and he was done for the day. And so the businessman says, well, then what are you going to do with the rest of your day? He says, well, I'm going to go home and spend time with my family, maybe take a nap with my wife and go for a walk on the beach this afternoon and this and that. And the businessman is like, well, you realize, you were able to catch this many fish in an hour. If you fished 2 or 3 more hours, think how much fish that you could catch and what you could do, and you could expand your business and make all this money. You could have multiple boats and people working for you, and he's trying to grow this guy's business. And the guy's like, well, getting excited. Well, yeah, I could do that. And then what would I do with all this money and everything? Is well, eventually after 10, 20 years, you've built this big business and you have all this money coming in, and then you could retire and move to a little fishing town and go home and have time with your family and take a nap with your wife and take a walk on the beach in the afternoons. I'm like, well, that's really perspective, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
It's you really have to decide your why and why you're doing it and what's important to you with why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I like that story. I mean, that's just exactly perspective. And sometimes you get stuck in your own bubble for so long, and hearing different people's perspectives. And that's the reason why I kind of do this podcast too, just getting more perspective of other people in different sides of the country or different sides of the world in the same exact topics. It's the main reason why I do this. Yeah.
Well, and what I was going to say a while ago that I'd forgotten was you're asking about new investors.
Yeah.
I highly recommend, if a new investor is not on Bigger Pockets, get on Bigger Pockets.
It's a
If
great
they are
resource.
not familiar with Bigger Pockets, now it is, a lot of the information is paid. When I first started getting on there and everything was free, but I think there's still a lot of free information on there, but it's worth the money to pay for whatever the pro subscription is, because they do provide all the forms and all the what you need to do the underwriting. Again, instead of recreating the will and trying to figure out how to make your own Excel spreadsheet and what to put on there, what percentages and everything to make your return on investment and to see if this is a good investment or not, all that's on there. And they provide all that to you to have a calculator and everything. You just plug your numbers in to see if this is a good deal or not. People on there are very nice with the forums and answer questions and so forth. If you're a new investor, and welcoming, and there's lots of classes on there and stuff. So, I don't have any relationship with them or anything. So I'm, not trying to plug them, but I do think it's a good resource for people that a lot of people have never even heard of Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, I haven't. I need to check that out.
Yeah, it's probably the first place we send everybody that's saying, hey, where can I just learn more about it? And we just kind of say, go there. There's some stuff behind a paywall, but there's a ton of information that's non-paywall, and it's a great forum. And there's other stuff out there, obviously, but that was one that I always tell people, start here.
Yeah.
And then start learning where to expand, because there's people there will tell you, hey, we'll go here.
And they have classes and stuff now. I mean, again, it's so different than from when we started with them, again, many years ago.
Yeah.
But anything and everything you ever want to know about, real estate is on biggerpockets.com. So they've got a lot of great information on there.
Love all the resources that we have. That's the one good thing about technology. And nowadays that you could just find anything online. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for giving that. And I want to end with plugging your companies where people could follow you, your website. So floor is yours.
So I start off our company. We focus a lot on multifamily and bigger projects, and helping people with looking for passive investment is Gorilla Capital Partners. And you can find that at gorillacapitalpartners.com, as well as contact information that I usually get to me for most of those stuff. And then Sherry can tell you on the other.
Then mine is aspirerealtyteam.com. And that has everything about our brokerage, investments, listings, property management, everything that I do on there. And then we have bigfootbuilders.com, which is our building company. Then we can build multifamily, barndos, duplexes, whatever somebody wants built.
Yeah, and even larger rehab type stuff. That's where we do all of our construction or site development with as well.
And we also help people with lending. So that is loanbosses.com. So if you're looking for some creative lending, for whatever reason, don't want to go through a traditional lender, hard money, bridges, construction loans, anything like that, then that's something we do as well.
So like we said, a little bit of everything.
Little bit of, you touch, like I said in the beginning of the episode, you literally touch on every little part of investing.
We have short-term rentals. So if anybody's coming to the area, we've got short-term rentals on the lake. We've got tiny houses. I've got links to that on Aspire, but we have other websites for that also. But
Sure.
you can get to pretty much all the websites through aspirerealtyteam.com, and it will direct you to our different websites also.
Awesome. And I'll have the links and everything in the caption for social media and on the podcast. So
That's awesome.
thank you so much for hopping on today for both of you guys on Saturday morning to hop on and talk to me on the Pro Series podcast.
I appreciate you having us.
Yes, enjoyed it. It's great meeting you.
Great meeting you too.